Okay. Hello to you all. We will start off our class with a bow and the four great vows. Please join your palms and bow. The four great vows. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings. I vow to cut off endless vexations. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood. We continue on with the final part of Huangbo today, and then I'm going to kind of connect that with some other material so that you can see this common ground. The common ground that we have here is ekayana, or mind only, that everything is created by the mind. This is not something very easy for us to fathom, because we try to use our uh, our consciousness and cogitation, thinking about things to try to make sense of it. But to really practice right view Chan, we have to learn a different language, and this is the language of contemplation and the language of mind. This is actually the universal language, but somewhere along the lines we lost that, and it was Mahayana that was that turning point that brought it back and said, no, not everything is real, everything is just empty. Oh, of course, this emptiness is a very perplexing thing when we try to see what emptiness is. The first thing we should do is abandon any kind of notion of what you might think emptiness is, especially if you think that emptiness is devoid of something, or that there is something there. So it is, as you see so often or read so often, it says it neither exists nor non-exists. And so that puts you kind of in a netherland. And this netherland is the working place of Nagarjuna and the middle way. And where on one side we go nihilistic, on the other side, then we go into this eternalism or permanency there, such as that everything is real, which was from the Abhidharma and the Theravadins, this highest level of what they knew as sometimes referred to as the Southern School. And I want to make sure you're clear about this, that this is not Southern School of Chan. It's just simply locale wise in terms of where Theravada teachings were. They were in Ceylon, Sri Lanka, the lower East South Asian countries. That's why it's referred to as the Southern School, but don't confuse it with the Southern School of Huineng of Chan and sudden illumination. And compared to the Northern School, sometimes they call it the East Mountain School, which of the Sheng, and this constant practice of things where Huineng was looking at things and saying, just this mind is the Buddha mind. So as we look at things in this way, it changes it. But I wanted to clarify that so that you don't get confused if you hear about Southern teachings. It is not Chan. That's Theravadan in origination. But the Southern School of Chan was Huineng School. So and you can see all of this throughout what Huangbo is talking about. And what's important is that you see how these Chan masters were well read. They were not just somebody sitting on a cushion. They explored the sutras, they explored the treatises, they read what was written before by the Chan masters, and they understood the sutras. They studied them diligently, and it's reflected in what they're saying, and it's reflected in their practice. So we get to the point when the burgeoning of the Chan school in China, it actually came a little earlier than Bodhidharma, but Bodhidharma brought with him this idea of this wall gazing, or just looking into mind. And that was very, very important, because with Bodhidharma, it's attributed to him that he brought the Lankavatara Sutra with him. And we'll get into that in a moment. But this Lankavatara Sutra was very important because it was very, very profound in its manner, and it was introducing um, the Yogacara school, or the mind only school there. Now, that also presupposed that there was already the middle way with that. So let's see where this takes us to. This is just a little bit of flavoring in the beginning to kind of give you an idea of where we're going with this. Going back to Huangpo, and if you could post it, please, Senta. I'll begin as she's setting that up. I assure you that all things have been free from bondage since the very beginning. So this is important because when we're looking at it and we're talking about the Four Noble Truths, suffering, the cause of suffering, cessation of suffering, and the path, and all of a sudden Huangpo is saying, hey, I'm following along with what the 8,000 line sutra says, the Prajnaparamita Sutra, the Heart Sutra, that there is no suffering, no cause of suffering. And so there's been no bondage. And that was from the very beginning. When you look at the teachings of Dharma, who binds you? What causes your suffering? All of the patriarchs are doing this, confessing my sins. I can't find my sins. Well, then your sins are confessed. All of these things are pointing towards originally mind is pure. This is difficult for us to understand because, again, we constantly are analyzing it from the samsaric viewpoint. We have to learn to contemplate. Contemplation is not a thing. It's an experience. It's that gnosis that I've been talking about. And that gnosis is there, and we develop the platform of right view and then use that as our ability to forge ahead with the contemplation. We get to the next line. You weren't able to put it up? Oh, there it goes. And it's going to be on the right side, right below Katayana. Katayayana, I should say. So the next line says, so why attempt to explain them? So why should we explain this practice? Why attempt to purify what has never been defiled? And this is important because when we do that and when we understand that it's already this way, we jump from the bottom of the class all the way to the top of the class by this idea that is already presupposed. It's already in this way. That is your platform, that you're there. You don't have to prove that. You don't have to search for that. You just have to have faith in mind that it is originally in this way. This is a key point because if you fail to get to that point, then you'll just be bashing your head on some kind of a glass ceiling of the idea of reality. And you're forcing and trying to make yourself feel this or try to go through, but you can't because you're trying to go through and press your body up against this glass ceiling, and it won't work that way no matter how good. Hey, look at me, I wouldn't hurt a flea. I'm so kind, I'm so this, I'm so patient and everything, but there's no admittance because a dream may appear in a dreamer's mind, but it cannot be its own mind. It's not in this way. So we have it backwards. And because we have it backwards, it won't work. Therefore, it is written, the absolute is thusness. How can it be discussed? And again, when we talk about that and we see this absolute is thusness, everything stops there. Because remember what I tell you, if you're going to discuss the absolute, if you're going to understand the absolute, you have to know what the absolute is, at least have a working knowledge of it. And then this next word, thusness, puts the brakes on right away. It's telling you, better take a look at this word and see if you understand what thusness is. But you cannot define thusness. It's just saying it is in this way. The absolute is thusness. How can it be discussed? How do you discuss it thus? How do you define it? You can't. So, give me a second because I lost my. Okay, there you are. You people still conceive. So he's saying you people who are clinging on to this idea of samsaric practice, you still conceive of mind as existing or non-existing, pure or defiled, as something to be studied in a way that which one studies a piece of categorical knowledge, or as a concept, as of these definitions are sufficient to throw you back into the endless round of birth and death. Or excuse me, so it says any of these definitions is enough to throw you back into birth and death, into the cycle of samsara and karma, and saying, okay, don't practice in this way. Don't make it a concept. Don't make it a category. There is samsara, and maybe there is a sound hearer and a pratika Buddha, and then there's the Buddha. And that's at the highest level. It isn't in this way. Originally, as Huang said, there was no mirror, stand bright. Originally, there was nothing there. That's the emptiness. That's the thusness of things. But that thusness doesn't interfere with the appearances that arise in mind. So we have to look at this. And again, the reason I'm talking in this way is to show you how to study, but also just keep punching away, punching holes into the screen that you're looking at to try to find out the answer so that you can see beyond the screen. The man who perceives things always wants to identify with them. The man who perceives things, that means any sentient being, whether it's a man, woman, beast or fowl or ghost, it is something that is referring to it and saying that they perceive, they want to identify with it. I like this, I dislike this, and to get a hold on them. Okay, I want this. I want to become enlightened. I want my mind to stop from thinking. I want this, whatever it is. Sometimes I just say it's so I wanna. Those who use their minds like eyes in this way. So he's saying here, those who use their mind like the false perceptions of the skandha, when you're using it in this way, then in this way are sure to suppose progress is a matter of stages. So what he's saying here is that if you use your mind in this way, this is very, very important. So please pay attention here. Because he says, if you use your mind in this way, that you're going for an attainment, you want to understand, you want to get something, you want to become enlightened or see something, and you think that this is a matter of stages. This is what I'll always tell you. There is no stairway to heaven. And that's the problem when people practice. They practice from this idea of the stairway to heaven. It makes you a better person, no doubt. No doubt. If you are patient, you're generous, you're wise, all of these things, it will make you a better person. But you're still a sentient being. You still cling to the idea of a sentient being. You still cling to the idea of attainment of nirvana or to attain enlightenment. And we knew from the demonstration of the inconceivable state of Buddhahood that the Buddha challenged Manjusri and said, "Have you obtained the state of a bodhisattva?" And Manjusri said, "If you've attained the state of a Buddha, then I've attained the state of a bodhisattva." And he says, "Don't you understand? Haven't I told you many times before that mind essentially is not a state? It is not something to be attained." And he said, "Quite so. That's why I say, did you attain the state of Buddhahood?" No. So it's understood this way. But sometimes we don't practice it in that way. We don't present it in that way. And it helps make this world a purer place, but there's no escape from that. It's a matter of life and death to get this right. I want you to be able to penetrate the sutras, penetrate the treatises, see the profound truth from your heart, and then it will work. If you're only holding on to words, it's not going to work. So he says, if you are that kind of a person, you are far from the truth as you're far from the truth as earth is far from heaven. So he says, you can't get there from here. And he's pleading with you, don't be that kind of a way. Don't think that this is something of an attainment, of an understanding, of the platform of Huaining is the platform to ready one for the practice. It is something that helps, but it is not these prerequisites that you go up in terms of a stairway. That's why he speaks of sudden illumination. It's not so sudden, but in comparison to practicing in a samsaric way, it is very, very quick. It's a snap of the fingers in comparison. How many lifetimes do you want to try to get this to perfect it till finally you perfected it and the mind is stable and it says, originally, this was mine. And then there's no cogitation there. There's just the realization from contemplation. Then you can get it. But you don't have to go through those steps to get there. You can go to the front of the line, but you have to use right view to do that. All the masters, they talk about that. The sutras talk about that. For some reason, we miss this and we think we have to do that. And okay, everybody line up, and I'm going to take you through. But it doesn't get you there. So he says, why is this talk of seeing into your own nature? So he's telling you right away, looking into your own nature, the true nature of mind is the true nature of mind. It is not your true nature of mind. And this is the difficulty because we get caught up in the language, and in the language we talk about your true nature or your practice or whatever, because we're in samsara. So it's difficult for us to refer to things in the context of saying mind's true nature, because that's too difficult for us to fathom. But it is better for us to use that kind of a vernacular rather than one that presupposes a possessive, that you have a true nature. The true nature has you. It's the other way around. That is turning the mind's eye inward. Now, let me switch gears for a moment. We're going to go to the Lankavatara Sutra, and the Lankavatara Sutra was a sutra that was pretty early on. Uh-oh. Here it is. Okay. Pretty early on, one of the sutras that was relied upon in Chinese Chan Buddhism, and it was one that is attributed to being brought by Bodhidharma. Questions are, that there, it might have been here before him. It doesn't matter. Some of these things that are historical, some things are important, some things are things that we understand that it's not quite precise. But we use our heart to study from it. We use our heart to find the meaning from it. If there's a sutra that doesn't have Buddha Vakana, that it wasn't something that the Buddha actually spoke, it's still, if it's within the context of the fundamentals and doctrine of the Buddha, of what the Buddha's message was, then that's fine. We don't have to have such great consternation about that if we can follow through. Leave that to the scholars to quibble about those things. If it makes sense to you, it's okay. I'm not telling you to blindly read things and believe things or have faith. I'm saying use your own heart, use your own judgment, your own wisdom to see if it's valuable for you. And then what happens is there is this other aspect of it where one runs into the esoteric meaning of this, which is beyond the basic meaning, the metaphysical meaning of the Mahayana sutras, and into the experiential aspect of it. And you'll know for yourself whether this is worthy of studying or not. And when that happens, everything flips, and what appeared to be real is not real, and what appeared to be unreal is real. And you see it clearly through your own gnosis, your own reckoning of that. Until that time, you have to have faith and study sincerely. You will be able to do this, and there will be a realization there. Not that you will see your true nature, the true nature will see you. It's a difference in that. But if you go, I want to see my true nature, go somewhere else. I'm not trying to insult you. I'm just trying to tell you, really pay attention. You have to look at this as if you're looking through a telescope and then realizing, let me turn this around. Wow, everything looks very close. When I turned it around, I was looking at it from the wrong side. Then everything is intrinsic and intimate. Now, those are fancy words, but they're a close way of explaining to you a realization where all of a sudden everything is close and intimate, just like Red Pine said. It isn't that there is a distance between us, but there's actually no distance between us. That's intrinsic, that's intimate. It doesn't matter whether it's between me and a bug going by, or a tiny spider, or having the mind move across the firmament to the farthest stars that are visible or known to in this cosmos. There's no difference there. This is how we practice. So in the Lankavatara, there's more or less an introduction to the Yogacara school, which is mind only. Now, the mind only school was then subsequently adopted by the by the Chinese, and maybe you can post up there the name because I know I always butcher it. I never get it right. But the Sheng Wei Shulin, the Wei Shulin school, the and which essentially was using the Yogacara school, and in this school, everything is referred to as consciousness only or mind only. Probably better to call it mind only, and saying that everything is mind. We juxtapose that, compare that to the Theravadan Abhidharma, where everything is seen as real because everything is manifesting, it's manifest, so therefore it's real. But that doesn't really work because if it's real, it can never change. And the one thing we know is that everything is impermanent because that's part of the aspect of this emptiness that we have. And so we have to see it in this way. So there was this big turn of what we call the turning of the Dharma wheel in this Mahayana. And the Mahayana is going, oh, it is just this way. It's this emptiness. Yogacharans looked at this and said, oh, this is uh, the mind. And so this is where Lankavatara is coming, but you're going to see something very interesting in a moment. So let's move on and see what the Lankavatara says about this. And it says, what is meant by mind only? And what I'm reading is part the Lankavatara and part commentary on the Lankavatara from a book called The Studies of the Lankavatara by D.T. Suzuki. It's an old book, but it still works to a certain extent. And it says, let me quote the Gathas relative to the subject. When things existent are regarded as free from bondage of mutual dependence, there is decidedly nothing but mind. And he's quoting the sutra, and it says, I say nothing but mind. So when we move away from the idea of dependent origination, all we do is we see everything from mind, because we have to see this as a change in viewpoint. When we see things from the samsaric viewpoint, we see things happening. We see pure and unpure, sacred and profane. We see changes all the time because it's from the samsaric existence. But if we look at it from the other end of the telescope, it's intimate. Those things are all part of mind. They're inseparable from it. And this is the emptiness of the mind that enables us to have this. And we cannot separate us from mind, but we cannot make us mind. We are an aspect of mind without being a characteristic of mind. It is just simply an appearance within mind. So as we begin to speak in this kind of a very strange terminology, it begins to work. But you have to be patient. You have to see it. That's why I'm constantly coming back, and doing this so that you can do this. Once you do that and you go back to the sutras or the treatises, it'll open up, incredibly open up for you. And you go, that was what Gilbert was talking about all this time. I can see it right here, what they're saying. So let's continue on. Mind is a measure of all things. It is the abode of their self-nature and has nothing to do with causation and the world. It is perfect in its nature. It has nothing to do with the causation and the nature of the world. You look at the Diamond Sutra, and the Diamond Sutra says all that you should think of this fleeting world, and the final line is an illusion, a phantasm, a dream. It is in this way that it has nothing to do with it, because we see those as just appearances. They are not. They are not anything else. They're dependent and originating in mind only. And that's why Yogacaras say, no, this is mind only. These things that happen where we think that they're real, it's only happening in mind. No matter you hit a desk and you knock on it and go, I can't put my hand through it, it doesn't matter, because it's nevertheless a dream. Have you ever driven in a dream, flown in a dream, been chased by monsters in a dream? All sorts of things. And when you're in the dream, you can swear that this is real. But what if you accept that this world is just appearances? Appearances of mind. It changes the whole equation. So perfect in its nature, absolutely pure. This is the measure, indeed, I say. So when they say mind is the measure of all things, what is the measure of all things? To know all the Buddhas of the past, present, and future perceive that all Dharma Dhatu nature is created by the mind. That's the measure. What is the meaning of mind? Mind. It is just this way. What is the substance of things? Mind. That's why I always say that whatever you see is woven from the fabric of mind itself. You may perceive it to be firm and hard, and the sun is rises and falls and whatever, but all of that is necessarily just appearing in mind. And that's why Lankavatara was going and saying this is the way that one should look at things. The worldly way of thinking views the mind as an individual self. So when we look at things, we see the world, and we see in kind of, I think, therefore I am, and we're self-proving. But there is no such substantial reality. Sariputra, form is not other than emptiness. Emptiness is not other than form. It's not real. So there's no substantial reality to it. We cannot say that it's there no matter what. I have my cell phone here. Take my word. There we go. And my cell phone's like me. It's getting long in the tooth. It's got a lot of cracks in it. And it's not new like it was before. There's an impermanence to it. I don't know how long it'll keep it going, but it's got probably about 5 cracks in the screen, but it works most of the time. I cannot say it's real or it's permanent. Obviously it's not permanent. It doesn't look anywhere near what it looked like when I pulled it out of the box. We fool ourselves into thinking about these things and believing that this world is real. A true practitioner looks through these things. So with substance of the skandhas, the worldly way of thinking views it as real. In reality, it has no existence. So he's talking about now, in absolute reality, it has no existence in terms of that. And then he refers to 4 sorts of sameness. This is a very tricky part that comes in here. This is from the sutra. And he says there are 4 sorts of sameness for those who discipline themselves in religious life. So are you disciplined in religious life? You would see appearance. There's appearances, causation. Something is causing the 4 noble truths, right? Coming into existence. I was born, and and egolessness. So these are the things that we look and then we practice in this religious life. But then wait to see what the next line is. The mind is beyond all philosophical views, is apart from discrimination, is not attainable, nor has it ever been born. So there's no person there, no life and being. I say there is nothing but mind. It is not an existence, nor is it a non-existence. So where have you heard that before? It's neither an existence nor a non-existence. There's a it's getting you ready here, and so it's saying, indeed, it is indeed beyond both existence and non-existence. It is suchness. It is even released from mind. Here, when it says mind, it uses a non-capital M there. So it's just saying, and it says, I say there is nothing but mind. And then they use a capital M there. So it's saying you don't cling to the idea of mind. It's mind. Mind knows mind. It doesn't have to define mind to know mind. Suchness, emptiness, the limit, nirvana, dharma, dhatu, variety of all will bodies are nothing but mind. I say, by discrimination and habit energy, these things people accept as an external world. We look around and we see this and accept it and say that this is the world. I say there is nothing but mind. What appears to be external does not exist in reality. So you look around and you see things apart from yourself. We take it to be reality. Everything is real, but it isn't. In reality, it isn't. That's why the Diamond Sutra is talking about that it's an illusion, a phantasm, a dream. What appears to be external does not exist in reality, and indeed, mind that is seen as multiplicity, body, property, abode, all these, I say, are nothing but mind. So all these things, or we talk about the myriad uncountable things that are there. We talk about the body, property, abode, a dwelling place. All of these things, they're just dreams. And those dreams are in mind. In the Sagatha Kam, this is part of the Lankavatara Sutra. It's verses in there. We have the following stanzas. When the mind only is understood, external objects are set aside. So when the mind only is understood, then we don't see external objects as being external objects anymore, because mind only conditions the mind to practice in a way to nullify the ignorance and the habit energy of ignorance, creating the impressions that there is this kind of a independent origination of the things around us, rather than seeing that they're all the substance of mind. When the mind only is understood, the external objects are set aside, discrimination ceases. So discrimination ceases when we no longer see things as external. We see that they are only appearing in mind, created by mind. And then listen to this. This is good. So he says, and we have middle way. So here we go. And we're right in the Madhyamaka school. All of a sudden, we're talking about Yogacara. Madhyamaka's there. And so they're not showing it as a separate school or a separate. They're showing that all of this stuff blends in together, fuses through the self-absorption. And in the self-absorption, the middle way Yogacara school are not inconsistent with each other. It is the product of seeing things. And so the Yogacara school says, if you get here, then the middle way is there, thereby reducing the tension between the two schools and allowing you to accept it in this way. It's very, very amazing how it does this. There is the mind only. There are no objects to be seen. When there are no objects to be seen, the mind is not born. And this is called by myself and others the middle way. So it comes and says, there it is. Look, it's this way. If you can't see things, it's neither exist nor non-exist. It's the middle way that straddles the idea of samsara and the absolute, but it sees via this perfected wisdom, Mahaprajna Paramita wisdom, and subsequently the Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi wisdom, that everything is created by the mind. Everything is fundamentally empty because it's created by the mind. And this is very, very important in terms of how we understand this. When we read a sutra or a treatise, we don't abandon what we've read before. We bring it right there. We put it middle way, you're here. The Yogacara school, you're here. No, whatever you have it there at your disposal to use and to help you to course through what is being said, because you don't want to just read words. You want to get it to the heart. Without being born, this is interesting again. Maybe I've been doing this so long, I get so excited reading this stuff, but it's because I want to share that enthusiasm with you. Without being born, they are seen as born. They are not dead. Okay, so when he's saying without being born, they're seen as born. Who is they? Who is they? Sentient beings. Sentient beings. Even though they're not born, they're seen as born. They are appearances within mind. So they appear in mind. This is why we cannot say they're existent nor non-existent. They're just part of mind. If we try to say it exists or not exist, we create a duality. But mind is non-dual. So, and if we see that they are not dead, but they're seen as dead, because it's kind of like you see it. All right, they're not dead, but you see them dead. You understand that these appearances, depending on what time it is in the Buddha cosmic watch, you look and go, it's 100 years later. You're all dead. But I don't see you as dead. Just mine. Which one do you want to choose? The 100-year option where you're dead, cremated or put in a coffin or whatever? Or the idea that this mind has never been born. You know, please, you don't take the game show one and take the curtain. Okay, take the known one. Choose the Buddha here. Trust me on this. Okay, you're not going to go bad with that. Okay, so we continue on. They simultaneously visible in the myriads of countries, even as moon is reflected in many waters. This is absolutely wonderful. Listen to this again. They are simultaneously visible in the myriads, in the uncountable countries, even as the moon is reflected in many waters. All the moon is an appearance, right? The moon in Chinese thought is equivalent to mind. And it's talking about all of these simultaneously reflected. And you have a difficulty just seeing across the street. Wouldn't you want to be intimate with all of that? It is possible, the infinite. We cannot talk about it. We cannot describe it. We cannot do anything. But here he's telling you in this very poetic way, that is mine. This omniscience that's there that defies, the time, past, present, and future. It's all there. It's your choice. One is seen as many. They make it rain. They ignite fires, as is willed by their minds. So they declare that there is the mind only. To say the mind only is by mind. It also born of mind. Particular forms and figures in all possible varieties, when thoroughly understood, are no more than mind itself. Of Buddhas, Sravaka forms, Pratika Buddha forms, and other various forms, it is declared by them that they are nothing but mind. Their focus, although really of no form, are seen as having form by all beings from the world of no form down to the hells. They are nothing but the workings of mind. So all samsara is just mind. From these quotations, and for some of which are more shrouded in obscurity than others, and just simply, I think that Suzuki didn't quite get it completely here, because it's very incredible and very marvelous in terms of what's being said here. He just couldn't see through the words. Their forms, although really of no form, are seen as having forms by all beings in the world of no form down to the hell. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I meant to read the next line. The reader may get a general idea as to the doctrine of mind only means. And the sutra makes these statements, and I'll finish with these statements. There's different locations in the Lankavatara Sutra, but it gives you kind of an idea, a feel for the practice of mind. And it says, the world is nothing mind. Nothing is to be seen outside of mind. And this is very interesting, because if you go to the my Mindwork forum, you'll say we were playing with that just yesterday and today in terms of the term nothing and mind. And you'll see there's a lot of work on that part itself. And then it says, mind produces the triple world, form, desire, and no form. The triple existence is nothing but mind. All is mind. I don't know if there's any more. When mind evolves, all forms are manifested. And it's kind of interesting in terms of the term when they say that when all mind evolves, all forms are manifested. I would change that term to revolves. And Shifu used to say that all the Dharma Dhatu nature revolves around the Buddha or the mind. And so I hope that this helps you get a more of a feel for what you're doing in terms of practice. Some of you, each of you comes in at a different date. Some of you have been with me for a long time, and this is not news to you. Others coming in later on, it still can be very, very confusing. And some of you have been with me for a while. You may be starting to get aha moments with this in terms of this. It is not in the understanding, it is in the practice of putting this to practice moment to moment to moment. Just keep putting it into practice, putting it into practice. And it was like what Shifu said. It's like an onion, that you just keep peeling and peeling off the layers till they become more and more translucent, till there's nothing there. But this is the practice, the proper practice. If we try to change that onion into a diamond, it's useless. Well, it's not useless because eventually you'll get there, but it's going to take you a lot more time. I'd rather that you practice in a way which would bring about a realization faster for the benefit of all sentient beings and the appearance of suffering that's there. As we begin to practice in the right way, you will see that it changes your ideas of wisdom, and most importantly, your practice of compassion. So please practice in this way. Next week we'll pick it up with something new. Well, it's not really new. It's at least 2,500 years old. So anyway, we'll pick it up next week. Thank you. I'll take questions. Every week it's like, who's going to step out on the dance floor first? It reminds me when I was in junior high and nobody would dance for the first like 5 dances until some teacher would force people to start dancing. And then everybody'd be out there twisting. I'm really showing my age now. Yes, Sam. For lack of other participation, come on in.
Amitofo, Gilbert. Thank you for the lecture tonight. It was very, very deep, and I'm always appreciative that you're willing to take the time to teach us this. I actually wanted to ask you a bit about, it was a quote that you actually kind of said of your own words in between reading the different parts of what you're reading, and it really like kind of just popped was you said mind does not have to define mind to know mind. And and this brought me back to contemplating the phrase "the perceived cannot perceive." And what this made me think of was how mind doesn't have to define mind to know mind, because if mind could define mind, it would mean that mind had characteristics, or it would mean that mind had an appearance and could be an object in this sense. So mind knows itself apart from having to define it, because wouldn't that split it in two?
There would be a duality there. It is just here, Sam, where I want to take you to is down a road that all of a sudden just stops, and it can't take you there any further. So your cogitation cannot help you. But that is the point when you stop and you contemplate. And you contemplate, mind is contemplating mind. When mind contemplates mind, there's no obstructions there. And if there's no obstructions, even if some appearance arises in mind, it will not be seen as an obstruction. It will just be seen in accordance with Pratika Samappada, an appearance in mind. There's no real person, there's no real solution, there's nothing. It is just simply, the infinite. It it's like, okay, you're included, you know, you can't bring yourself, you can bring your dog, assuming you can establish he has a Buddha nature, but he can't bring his tail with him. No, and you look at things in a different way, from the perspective of mind itself, and that's different. So this is where I'm pushing you to, and you're kind of there, and you're working on this, and this is important, that you just have to keep playing with this. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. When you see the people on the forum, Mindwork forum, and they're processing through things, it's not that they expect to get a yes or no, or the a prize for saying things. They're trying out what their understanding is, and that's great. It's not something that I'm playing a game with them. I'm sincere with them, that I want them to get there. And so if I pick at it and pick at it, just to make sure that they don't feel complacent in some kind of an understanding. So you'll get there. Just stay with what you're doing. And that turning phrase that you have is important to you. That which is perceived cannot perceive. It is as if you were watching a movie, right? And could the person on the screen perceive you? Would the
No.
person would the person on the screen have any idea of how big the theater is, or leaving the doors to the theater, how infinite the rest of it is? No, because they're only in this little um, uh, play, that's there, that they're running out. And when that one's gone, then they put on a new reel, and they change it around a little. It sounds like Hollywood. Change it around a little bit, play the same story again. Sometimes you're a superhero, sometimes you're the villain. And so, but when we see the things in the right way, and we understand, there's no purchase there. There's no validity to those projections on the screen. They're just simply appearances. That's what's important. That we have to begin to condition the mind to accept the unconditioned. That's the platform that you work off of. But you don't take the unconditioned with you, or try to define the unconditioned. You just simply let go. So stay with it. You're doing it in the right way.
Amitabha, Gilbert. Thank you.
All right.
Gilbert, Leonardo has a question.
Okay.
Hi, Gilbert. Thank you for your talk. Can
Yes.
you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Hi. So I was thinking about this question since I have a conversation what I was taking care of a patient and with the relative last week. And I was thinking that you are answering this question as I was listening to the talk. But I still want to ask, it seems like this reality of what's going on in the Middle East, in Gaza, in Palestine, has affected, of course, the people that are there suffering, but a lot of people around the world. So I was going with this thinking, just feeling it on my own. But then when I started this conversation with the patient's relative, she spoke of being losing her mind. She's a doctor. That she's losing her friends, that she doesn't have people to talk to. And I want to use this opportunity to see if you can help us just to make sense of this. Even though like right now we are practicing, we are trying to understand everything is mind, or we are a sack of bones and meat, puppets, or imaginary beings. Still, this reality is overwhelming for many of us right now, and I would like to listen to you, if you can, please.
We use what we understand to help others. Sometimes it is simply compassion and knowing what to say, and a lot of times what not to say to people. And this helps us to develop more wisdom. Of course, we can develop the wisdom of the samsara. There's nothing wrong with that. It is not Mahaprajna Paramita wisdom, but it is one that doesn't create problems generally. But when we use Mahaprajna Paramita wisdom, there's no self there. There's just simply this incredible compassion that we want to be able to say the things that we need to say to help people. It doesn't matter if they're Christians. It doesn't matter if they're Jewish or Muslim or whatever. Wisdom is wisdom, and compassion is compassion. And a lot of times people just need to hear something that can give them strength. When you hear terms like that from a person, you know they're becoming a lost soul. They don't know which direction to turn to. If they have a religion, you turn them towards their religion and you give them strength in their religion. If they don't have one, then you just speak of things in generalities of wisdom that will help them. And if they ask you about it, you can tell them, you're a practicing Buddhist, and you'd be glad to explain that more to them if they want. But we don't proselytize as much as that we present a wisdom, really a sincere wisdom to help people. So you're at a point now where you realize what you say, what you think, what you do has ramifications. And you should see it in a way that these ramifications can change the environment. And even if it's just this one person that you listen to, and you listen to it and let them say what they needed to say and directed them, that's worth something. So there isn't, it's not like you have to say things for the masses. Sometimes it's there, and you do. I see Tori is here. Tori is a veterans counselor, and she may help a group, or she may help one-on-one. And it is where we use this kind of a compassion to be able to help people and know what to say to them. So I'm so happy she's there, because she can really use this wisdom to help other people that feel like they're lost. And so it's not bad. Just keep at it in terms of what you're doing, and it will come to you. Just use your heart, and the proper words will come out for you. Okay.
Thank you. But if I can, one more thing is also because personally, the way I feel about this, I try to be away from the news and everything, but it's kind of discouraging in everything that you are trying to do, just to see how much pain can be inflicted in this time and age. And it's happening right here, right now, to a bunch of people, a whole population, millions of people actually. And that's the kind of feeling that I kind of realized that I also have myself when I was talking to this other person, that in a way is depressing in a way that the energy that you need to use to practice, to cultivate, to be in the kind of group that I would like to feel that I am in your leadership. It takes away from that because of seeing so much horror going on right now.
It is because sometimes we don't understand that we think that there should be some divine being to guide us, and yet here the distinctions between the fighting parties are more religious and territorial, and it doesn't make any sense in terms of it. You were right about that, but it is because these are I have to hold my tongue a little bit. But these discriminations are fabricated, and their justifications are fabricated, and it's very very pitiable on both sides. One side starts it, and the other one multiplies it by 1,000-fold. And I shouldn't say thousand, maybe tenfold, in terms of the casualties and the horror that's there. That's there. There's no understanding. There's no justification other than the fact that it's pure ignorance, and
Right.
and we have to see it in this way. There's no right. There's no wrong in any of it. The only thing we can do is use our heart and focus our heart in a way that we, one, don't become part of the problem, and two, send blessings and well wishes to try to change it. If there's enough focus in this way, it will help change that. But we have to understand that in this world that we're in, it's not always a really great dream. Sometimes it can be hell on earth, and it's unfortunate, but this is the way that things can be seen. You We cannot gain wisdom or understanding by looking at the things and trying to judge who is right and who is wrong here. We just have to see that this, as the sutras are always talking about, and the masters, is a burning house, and there is suffering here. If one holds on to the suffering, the salvation is that if one sees that this is an illusion, then it changes and it converts it to a pure land. The suffering here in this world is not real. I know that we would say, well, of course, it's real to the person that died, yes, and it will come back. That person will come back, and maybe they'll be the ones that bomb the others or cause harm to them. It is this cycle of samsara that we don't understand. And if we try to fathom and understand it from the viewpoint of samsara, we can never understand it. We can never understand that actually just this moment, this mind is pure. We go, well, that's crazy because, you know, all these things that are happening. We'll stop watching the bad movies, you know, stop watching the horror movies. If you watch horror movies, then you go home and then you're there by yourself. You're afraid of all the things that are going to pop out and get you. I don't mean to say that it doesn't matter. It does matter. If it didn't matter, I wouldn't be talking. My goal is to try to create, as follow Shifu in the ideal of creating a pure land on earth, so that more and more sentient beings would be able to be delivered. But we cannot make rhyme or reason of this in this way, nor can we say the reason I study the Buddhism is because that makes more sense to me. There isn't a divine Buddha that determines all the stuff that happens. The Buddha is also subject to pratika samappada as an appearance body. To to a Buddha outside of samsara, that's just the dimple on the Buddha's face. It's just part of the Buddha. That's hard to understand. But we don't personify or anthropomorphize the Buddha. It is not the same way as monistic religions see things and see that there is a creator. Because if there's a creator in that way, when we talk about everything's created by the mind, there's no one person that creates these things. But if there's a creator, and if we believe in a religion that has a creator, why would a creator create the whore? That's why I'm no longer a Christian, because that never made any sense to me. But just as the Buddha said, if one is stricken by an arrow, we don't look to see who shot the arrow. It's more important to take the arrow out and heal. And that's what we do. It is the thing of Villa the wise layperson who played like he was ill, because his illness is the illness of all sentient beings. And so long as all sentient beings launch rockets and kill people and do things, he will be ill. So Villa illness is my illness as well. I feel. Believe me, you feel for that. You don't suffer from it, but you feel for it. There is a compassion there. And we use this unbridled compassion and this deep, deep wisdom to try to turn this ship around and set it on the right direction. But it's like we're piloting a big container ship, and it's hard to turn it around. It doesn't turn around like one of those skidoo things, that people play it with. It takes a long time, but we have all the time in the world. It will happen. This is how we use Buddha wisdom to practice and to observe the world. We run into the reality of it. We don't escape it. And we don't blame it on God, or God forsake them, or did this, or caused this, or it's God's will, Allah Akbar, or the English, version, it's God's will. Why are we always blaming that? We have to see the things as they are. And if we do, there's a chance of changing it. It is why I spend the time talking, whether there's 5 people there or 20 people or 40 people, whatever. It matters. It may matter to one of you. So that's my approach. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's something important to discuss, especially in this day and age. Okay, Renee.
Thank you, Gilbert. You always give us the teaching, very directly teaching. So really appreciate. My question is, I found I continually use filter to recording everything. And so I make my own personal video. And but my issue is I believe this video right away. And I use this video to do conclusion and action. Yes, so when I realize it's already gone, so sometimes when I found it, I use my personal video to make a conclusion and action again. It's already gone. I was like, I believed this video again. So my problem is how can I realize and not believe this video anymore? I use the filters to record my personal video. So,
yeah, there's nothing wrong with what you're doing. It is one method. They say there's 84,000 Dharma doors. So it isn't necessarily bad, because what you're doing is you have things in your head, right? And then you're taking it out of your consciousness and putting it there and observing it to see whether it holds water or not. That's wonderful. That's why I have the mind work forum, so people can type out whatever they want to type out and then send it and say, does this fly? Does this hold water? Or is this, something wrong with it? So there's nothing wrong with the way you're doing it. I would say continue to do that. That's a great way to do it, because it's hard. It's like trying to explain to others this profound teachings, when you just barely start. It's not easy. People get really tongue-tied, and they get trapped, with somebody who's more adept at debating or whatever, and they may lose their faith. But in the manner in which you're doing it, you're getting it out of your head, down your tongue, and in front of you. And you're able to take a look at it. And so it's good. I wholeheartedly recommend you continue to do that. And because one day you're going to be teaching this, and so this gives you the practice to be able to articulate what you feel. And if there's flaws in what you do, then you can see it, or you can ask a well-known advisor. I'm not really sure about this part. Can you help me? And that's important. It's difficult to find well-known advisors that will give you the time of day and that will talk to you, and more than just a yes or no answer or whatever. It's important, though. It's really important to have somebody to guide you, not to teach you, but to guide you in what you're doing. That's important, and that cares, because that care is infectious. And when you do that, and you see that there's a well-known advisor that's doing that for you, you want to help other people. You want to repay that, so you repay it going forward. So whatever you do, you want to share that with others. So this is good. Keep doing this, please. And any other question?
Oh, that's it for today. But I'm very glad I will attend your retreat very soon. So I'm so happy. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to do, and let me know how you're doing with that. Okay. Just don't get in a fight with yourself.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Anybody else?
Gilbert, Arvind has a question. He's put it in the chat, but Arvind, if you want to come off of mute.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Gilbert.
Yes,
So
go ahead.
my question is, while starting to practice, thinking about for doing the practice for the benefit of all being was helpful in letting go of many bad lifestyle practices, and to kind of get the discipline in the practice. But it came with the idea of looking at people as the individual beings, as concrete individual beings who go through difficulties, and trying to think of the results of my action as affecting real people in a very real way. As I read more and I listen more, and I practice more, and thinking about the impermanence of everything, what's the right way to actually think about for the benefit of all beings? I don't know if that question makes sense, but as you think more about impermanence and trying to understand what does it mean still to act in a way that is directed towards the benefit of beings, or how to understand beings in this case, I guess that's the question.
It's a very good question. Right now, it seems to be a very popular question. And I've addressed it a few times on the Mighty Network, the Mindwork Forum. But I think I might work one class on that to talk in more detail, because it is this, we don't develop bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is already intrinsically within us. There's no growing of that. All we have to do is come to the realization that bodhicitta is just the unobstructed mind. This bodhicitta is a result of the practicing of wisdom and and this way in which we come to a realization that just this mind is the Buddha mind. And so when we do that, it's interesting. Like I say, I'm going to try to work on a class. It could be a while before I do it because it's not something easy to do, because there is ways in which you transfer merit to others. You try to help people, and you try to do that, and then there's more esoteric practices with that I've been working on, and that is. Sometimes can be very amazing, and that they actually are much more effective. But it does require one to be able to understand mind more in order to harness it. That's what one master says. You have to harness your intrinsic power, or derive power from your power. Deriving power from your power is the power to be able to practice properly. And then from that power, then comes the Buddha power. Understand, we're not talking about power like Superman type power, Spider-Man power. That's useless. We're talking about a mind application that can change things, that is much more powerful than that. That what we set into motion. And so it's important that you use your heart. Don't think, am I doing this or I'm not doing this, or I don't feel anything. You won't feel anything if you transmit blessings to people. You may not feel anything on your side, but the other side will feel it. You'll be very surprised, and sometimes the things happen very, very interesting. We don't look for the results. Hello, I sent you some blessing. Did you feel it? Oh, yes, I felt that. The people will call you up and they'll say, thank you, thank you. You did this. And it can be something very mundane, or it can be something life-saving. It doesn't matter. We just learn how to do that and just keep trying. So my advice to you is just continue to keep perfecting this kind of practice. It's a very big key to this, to develop this kind of a practice. I want to see if I can find something here. Just give me 1 second. One of my students was talking to me, and I had been commenting on something. And I was talking to that person about how to transmit merit, and how it works, and then she wrote back, "Thank you for the explanation." Like what Shifu said, reciting Guan Yin. So Shifu is Master Shen Yang, and she said, Shifu said, reciting Guan Yin, praying to Guan Yin, or Guan Yin Pusa, which is the Bodhisattva of compassion. And the last is to be Guan Yin. And know that it's also mind, a precious reminder. So she really, you could say, got the bone marrow from what I was saying. And it is this way in which it is, and it is how we practice, and there's more to it than that, but that gives you an idea. There's these 3 levels of the practice, and to be Guan Yin is a realization that all people possess Buddha nature. Thus, they have this intrinsic power already. They just don't know how to do that. But as long as they believe they're Gilbert, they're limited to the power of the focus of Gilbert's consciousness. When Gilbert's not in the equation, the mind is infinite. The power is infinite. It's different. It's very amazing. Don't ever underestimate that. It's truly amazing. So the things that can come from that. So I will try to work on that a little bit and see what I can come up with um, on that. It just seems to be a refrain that's coming up, and I actually over the weekend I had a quite an amazing dream about Guan Yin, and just very amazing. And actually, it was Guan Yin and Shifu. So it's interesting that she brought up Shifu in terms of talking about it because it was the same kind of a connection. So that's good. Okay, we'll pick it up. Hopefully that helps you a little bit, but I'll try to maybe put together a class on that. I could take some time to do that because I'm not really sure how to teach what you cannot teach. How to do something that requires there not to be a self. But I'll try to figure it out for you. Okay.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right. Thank you all for participating. Again, I try my hardest because I truly see you to be the leaders, the ones that will bring this forward into the next generations, and try to pass this on so it's preserved. Right view is so precious, and it's such a direct route. It's so misunderstood. And people think it's too deep or too profound to present. What a shame. What a shame. This really is so precious. It's not my words. I just simply transmit this wisdom from all of the previous masters and from the sutras. It is just in this way, transmitting wisdom, and converting it to compassion. So please practice hard, study. Okay, we'll see you next week.